have low vision or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, June 17, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella. Starting with the weather report. Clouds and sun today with a passing shower, breezy, high of 71. A couple of showers and a thunderstorm tonight, windy late, low of 62. Windy tomorrow, high of 70, low of 56. For Friday, showers around, a high of 68, low of 52. Saturday, breezy, an afternoon thunderstorm, high of 71, low of 53. For Sunday, increasing cloudiness, a high of 70, low of 58. For Monday, rain and a thunderstorm, a high of 68, low of 55. And for Tuesday, a stray morning shower, a high of 75, low of 59. The pollen count today remains high. Sunrise today was at 5:36 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 8:57 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story, tax checks relief coming to eligible homeowners. Albany, hundreds of thousands of eligible homeowners in western New York are soon expected to receive up to $6,000, what was that? No, $600. That's not $6,000. Can't read here. Up to $6,000 or $600, while seniors can reap up to $1,500, all to offset the cost of school taxes. Governor Kathy Hochul announced Tuesday. The announcement was immediately criticized by Nassau County Executive Brooke Blakeman, Hochul's opponent in this year's election, as a gimmick and a way to turn attention away from the high cost of Hochul's policies. The more than $2 billion in tax relief under the School Tax Relief Program, known as STAR, and Enhanced STAR program for residents 65 and older will benefit 2.8 million recipients across the state, including at least 314,000 recipients in the counties of Erie, Niagara, Chautauqua, and Allegheny, according to Hochul's office. Some 274,000 eligible recipients in the Finger Lakes region, including the counties of Genesee, Orleans, and Wyoming, will receive the checks, officials said. Homeowners who earn $500,000 a year or less will be eligible for the STAR check rebate. Most recipients will receive a check between $350 and $500. Recipients who earn $250,000 or less will receive the benefit in the form of a tax exemption, officials said. Eligible homeowners who registered for STAR will get their checks before the deadline to file school taxes. Residents of Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and New York City, which have due dates in June and July, will receive the benefits soon, eligible officials said. Eligible seniors or Enhanced STAR will receive a check between $700 and $1,500, officials said. With that money, you can maybe fill up your gas tank, hopefully more than once, and make a couple of car payments and get some groceries and buy some school clothes if you've got little kids, Hochul said during an appearance in Manhattan. But for seniors, the benefit is even bigger. Many are on fixed income. They're not bringing in income every single paycheck anymore. And eligible seniors will receive between $700 and $1,500 in relief. So that's the relief they can count on. Use that to enjoy your retirement or go out to dinner or movie. Or like I said, you'll pay some bills at the end of the month instead of worrying so much about how you're going to manage. Hochul, a Buffalo-born Democrat, is running for re-election against Blakeman, a Republican, this November. In response to the governor's announcement, Blakeman said a one-time rebate check does nothing to advance the long-term pressures created by Hochul's massive tax hikes, constant utility rate hike approvals, and sky-high tolls and fares. As governor, I'll deliver permanent relief by cutting income taxes and slashing utility bills in half.
Thank you, Larry. Crypto's facility aims to be AI data center. The owner of a troubled cryptocurrency mining facility in North Tonawanda wants to transform its property to house the next generation of computers used to power artificial intelligence, a move that would run up against the city's moratorium on data centers. Residents are already organizing against the plans announced by DigiPower X, the company that operates the former Fortistar gas power plant on Erie Avenue. None of us want an AI data center. None of us want the crypto data center that's there now, said resident Mark Polito. Dan Rutuno, DigiPower X's vice president for operations, presented a proposal to the city's planning commission on Monday to build an 80,000 square foot, two-story building to house the AI equipment. The $250 million building would replace much of DigiPower's 10's X current buildings on the property, which currently hosts supercomputers conducting calculations to mine for cryptocurrency. The operation would employ 50 to 70 people, whereas only 17 currently work at the facility, according to the company's application to the Planning Commission. The cryptocurrency mining company's desire to move into AI appears to follow a national trend, where AI data centers are popping up around the country. There are at least 7 data centers in Erie and Niagara counties, with more proposed, including a $2 billion AI data center at the old Tonawanda Coke site. I question why the City Planning Commission is reviewing a plan for a project that isn't allowed under our current zoning code, said Deborah Gondek, a local advocate in the city that has fought the data center since it began operations in 2022. North Tonawanda Mayor Austin Tylik said he's advocating for the city's Common Council to extend its current 2-year moratorium on data centers for another year. The moratorium, passed in July 2024, bans new data centers or the expansion of existing sites, including AI and crypto mining operations. The moratorium was passed to allow the city time to update its noise ordinance and zoning laws to account for the new development. While the city passed an update to the noise ordinance on February 17th, it has yet to update its zoning code to consider data centers. DigiPower X could potentially apply to build the AI facility under the moratorium's extraordinary hardship exemption, Tylik said. Such an exemption would only be granted if the company can show that complying with the moratorium would expose it to substantial monetary liability or leave it unable to use a reasonable alternative according to the moratorium. Including the hardship exemption in the moratorium was necessary, Tylik said. It's complicated, but it protects us while also trying to rectify the major issue that is burdening the surrounding neighborhoods, he said. The major issue is primarily the noise coming from the DigiPower X buildings. The hundreds of supercomputers create a large amount of heat. To cool down the computers, DigiPower X installed several massive fans that create a low humming noise that reverberates around the surrounding neighborhoods. The noise could be harmful to residents' health, according to experts interviewed by the news in 2024. Noise pollution triggers people's fight or flight response and can lead to long-term health issues, including anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, inability to recognize one's immune response, cardiovascular-related mortality, hypertension, and strokes, according to health experts. Following the news reporting, the city hired an outside expert to help the city update its noise ordinance, bought new noise monitoring equipment, and trained police officers on enforcing the new law. In July 2025, the North Tonawanda Police Department issued multiple noise law citations to DigiPower X. DigiPower X continues to fight the citations in city court. In April, residents, including Polito, filed a class action lawsuit in federal court against DigiPower X for its pervasive, inescapable, and unbearable noise, according to court documents. DigiPower X has moved to dismiss the lawsuit, with a judge's decision pending a response from the residents. DigiPower X application for the 80,000 square foot building for the AI operation notes that the company proposes removing all the computer fans that are previously creating higher than desired noise levels. The new architecture will consist of emergency use only backup diesel generators and closed-loop air-cooled cooling towers, it says. Gondek said she's suspicious that the AI building's cooling system would have a measurable impact on the noise pollution coming from the property. They, DigiPower X, didn't have a lot of specifics about if the noise would be reduced enough to be within compliance of our new noise ordinance, she said. If they really cared about the harm caused to residents from this constant exposure to the high noise levels they created, they could have introduced this alternate cooling system at any point over the past 5 years. Polito also said he doesn't trust that DigiPower X's new design will reduce noise from the facility. He noted that DigiPower X's initial applications to North Tonawanda to build its current crypto mining facility promised that no noise would come from the facility, a promise that Polito feels was loudly broken. I don't believe them since they lied to us from day one. How can you expect anyone to trust them, he asked. They only care about their profits. They don't care about the residents of North Tonawanda. DigiPower X has not responded to requests to comment for this story. The North Tonawanda Planning Commission voted unanimously last week to designate itself as the lead agency for the environmental reviews on the project and referred review of the project to the Niagara County Planning Board, which is standard procedure. The city is expected to vote on extending the data center moratorium during its Tuesday meeting. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. U.S. Iran both claim victory as deal looms. Washington, the United States and Iran are preparing to formally sign their interim peace deal in Switzerland on Friday, with both sides claiming victory and oil traders and shippers unsure over how quickly the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened. The text of the so-called Memorandum of Understanding, a 14-point document that should lead to a 2-month ceasefire extension and the start of a complicated negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, has yet to be published. A senior U.S. official said it's possible that happens in the next 2 days ahead of the signing ceremony in Geneva. Vice President Vance is expected to head the American delegation, while Iran will likely be represented by Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. President Trump is in France for a Group of 7 summit where the Iran war, which has caused energy prices to soar, is featuring prominently. G7 nations such as France, the UK, and Italy are likely to play key roles in any demining of the strait that's needed to facilitate its opening. Speaking at the summit on Tuesday, Trump said the agreement is a done deal, adding that the U.S. would not invest money in Iran or pay war reparations. Washington is now dealing with rational people in the Islamic Republic, he said, reiterating the country will not be able to develop nuclear weapons. They're going to have to prove themselves, I think, before any of us go in there, Trump said when asked about economic opportunities for Iran. On Monday, Italian Defense Minister Guido Crosetto and U.S. counterpart Pete Hegseth met in Washington, where they discussed a 4-ship flotilla that Rome is preparing to send to the Hormuz Strait, according to one G7 official familiar with the matter. This includes 2 minesweepers now in Djibouti, where they were dispatched to prepare for the mission, the official said. Trump held bilateral meetings with United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed and Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad on Tuesday as part of the G7 summit. Those countries may play a part in helping create, along with the U.S., a $300 billion development fund for Iran in the aftermath of the conflict. The U.S. will look to other countries and the private sector to pledge investments in Iran, the American official said. The Islamic Republic, which has a population of 90 million people and some of the world's biggest oil and natural gas reserves, wanted the fund included in the MOU to help with reconstruction. Iran said the war, which began on February 28th with the U.S.-Israeli bombardment, cost the country more than $250 billion in economic damage. Iranian officials have claimed the MOU will lead to them getting access to tens of billions of dollars of frozen funds held in places such as Qatar. Trump and his administration have consistently said the Islamic Republic will get no funds unfrozen or sanctions lifted on the signing of the agreement. That, they said, will happen in steps, contingent on Tehran fulfilling the terms of the deal. Oil prices have fallen sharply since Trump said late last week an agreement was imminent. Brent crude dropped 3.6% to just above $80 on Tuesday, falling for a fourth straight day. It's down from a high of 125 in late April, with traders having anticipated the U.S. and Iran would reach a deal instead of revert to all-out war. Lower demand in China, as well as the U.S. and other nations running down their emergency petroleum stockpiles, have also helped lower prices. Those reserves will likely need to be rebuilt once the strait is open again. Many European governments, energy investors, and shipping companies doubt Trump's claim that the Strait of Hormuz will be fully open on Friday. Beyond the probable need to clear the waterway, through which significant portion of the world's supplies of oil, liquefied natural gas, and aluminum normally flow, there's also the question of whether Iran will allow ships free passage. Tehran has signaled it will charge vessels navigation fees after the 60-day period of the fresh U.S.-Iran negotiations. Vance defended the deal, claiming the pact will build around a verification system to ensure Iran follows through on its pledges. Still, neither the U.S. nor Iran is hiding its distrust of the other, and the White House says Trump won't hesitate to return to strikes if he thinks Tehran's leaders aren't abiding by the terms. President Trump knows this regime stalls and uses talks to buy time. He will not allow it, according to a document seen by Bloomberg. The pressure that brought Iran to the table stays fully loaded, and every option is still on the table. Trump's frustration with the war he launched nearly 4 months ago has been increasingly visible, and his focus has often drifted elsewhere, including to the renovation projects in Washington and festivities surrounding the 250th anniversary of the U.S. independence. The president, who turned 80 on Sunday, looked tired when he arrived at the G7 on Monday. He traveled only after attending a mixed martial arts fight at the White House that ended well after midnight. Israel's war against Iran-backed Hezbollah's militants in Lebanon is another potential spoiler to a successful deal. The MOU is likely to state there must be a ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon. Israeli politicians have balked at that, believing in the need to carry on fighting a group that has fired missiles and drones on their territory in support of Iran. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been criticized by Israelis for the deal, which they also see as conceding too much to Iran, an archenemy of the Jewish state, and not restricting its ballistic missile program. Netanyahu had no direct say in the U.S.-Iran talks mediated by Qatar and Pakistan, and his relationship with Trump has come under plenty of strain as those have advanced. On Tuesday at the G7, Trump criticized Israelis' handling of Hezbollah and again said the conflict in Lebanon has hindered the talks with Iran. I suggested to Israel to let Syria take care of Hezbollah, Trump said. I'm not happy with the way Israel has handled themselves with Lebanon and with Hezbollah. They should have been able to do the job faster. It just goes on forever, and when that happens, it throws a negative light on the big deal, and that's the deal with Iran. There is still a lot of work to be done to fully end the Middle East conflict, Qatar's emissary said in France on Tuesday, speaking alongside Trump. There will be huge opportunities for investment in Iran, but the recent target for all sides has been to reach a deal, he said. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:18. Today in history, Wednesday, June 17th, 1925, Allied powers in the League of Nations signed the Geneva Protocol, which reaffirmed prior bans on using poisonous gas in warfare and added the prohibition of bacteriological weapons. In 1940, England sent the liner RMS Lancastria to evacuate more British troops, as well as women and children, from France 2 weeks after it started withdrawing from Dunkirk. Caught unprotected off the port of Saint-Nazaire, the ship was sunk by German planes, the attack lighting a resulting fuel spill. The estimated death toll was between 4,000 and 7,000, more than the losses of the Titanic and Lusitania combined. In 1957, black people began boycotting stores in the city of Tuskegee, Alabama, in protest of state legislation that deprived them of municipal votes by placing their homes outside city limits. In 1967, China had its first successful test of a thermonuclear weapon, a three-stage hydrogen bomb that yielded 3.3 megatons and was part of its two bombs, one satellite project. Soviets initially had helped China develop its weapons program until relations deteriorated in the late 1950s. And in 1994, football legend O.J. Simpson was arrested and faced double murder charges after a low-speed police chase on Interstate 405 in Los Angeles that lasted about an hour and was broadcast live on TV across the nation. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. A new approach. This is the local Buffalo News editorial. Broadway Fillmore residents will take reins on neighborhood transformation. Development that renews neighborhoods from the ground up is about to take its first steps. There is reason to hope an innovative form of community building will soon be transforming part of the Broadway Fillmore. If successful, it will be applied to other parts of the city. The concept, known as the Upper Broadway Fillmore Transformation Project, has up until now existed solely on paper and as the subject of meetings and presentations. But a 2-year, $3 million grant from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation, announced Thursday, will provide enough funding for the project to hire a core team, establish a resident-led neighborhood council, launch a community-wide planning process, and even fix up a few neighborhood homes. As reported by the News' John Harris, the experiment will be tried out in real time in a real place. U.S. Census Tract 166, a roughly half-mile grid of streets near East Side landmarks such as MLK Park, the Broadway Market, and Central Terminal. The grid is bounded by Jefferson Avenue, Genesee Street, Best Street, Fillmore Avenue, and Broadway. As the project moves ahead, it is thought that more founders will come forward. It's likely that other foundations will see what Mother Cabrini saw, a process that rejects the top-down approach and invites community members to the table to decide for themselves how they want to make their neighborhood better. As Daniel Frischella, Chief Programs and Grants Officer at Mother Cabrini, noted, it's the community itself coming together, led by people who have demonstrated a commitment to this community for decades. And that's unusual to see on this level, but also quite inspiring for the foundation. There are many reasons this is worth trying. The main one is that Buffalo's East Side has been assessed by numbers and the sad fact that things are not getting better. At best, there is stagnation. Henry Louis Taylor, Jr., founding director of the University at Buffalo Center for Urban Studies at the School of Architecture and Planning, and his team of researchers compiled 2 separate reports in 1990 and 2021. The stories these studies tell are chilling and depressingly familiar. Between those 2 dates, 3 decades apart, research found that the average household income for black residents moved from $39,000 to just $42,000. Home ownership rates actually went down from 33% in 1990 to 32% in 2020, while the poverty rate inched slightly downward from around 38% to 35%. The needle essentially didn't move, and as many residents and observers have reported, investments made after the horrific racist massacre that killed 10 black people on May 14, 2022, have failed to make a significant difference. How long do we wait before trying something new? Thanks to this funding and the work of Taylor, the Reverend George F. Nicholas, CEO of the Buffalo Center for Health Equity, and several other supportive organizations, the waiting is over. The team has a compelling strategy mapped out. Housing is the top target, with efforts intended to reduce rents, improve properties, and increase property ownership rates. Education is a big part of the action plan, and efforts would include building year-round youth development activities, bolstering literacy, and creating innovative on-the-job training programs. Green infrastructure and neighborhoods beautification would change a negative atmosphere of blight, as well as attack physical issues that depress both the mental and physical health of residents. The goal? a healthy, walkable community filled with trees, shrubbery, flowers, and natural amenities. Finally, it's no surprise that addressing health disparities is a central part of the transformation plan. After all, the collaborating organizations here include two health equity nonprofits. Without reducing food insecurity, providing better access to screenings and exercise programs, and disease prevention strategies, a healthy community isn't possible. As Taylor has said, it's time to try something different. This pilot project is different. It's also ambitious, challenging, and smart. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one's by Adam Zeigler of the Buffalo News, and it's titled Buried Time Capsules. And there's a jar that says Class of 2000, and I can't see what it's inside. There's a box from 1979. There's a jar sealed, a metal jar sealed of 1901 Pan Am Exposition. There's another jar that's see-through. I can see through this one, and it's not labeled 1985, and it shows a Gremlin toy and a Rubik's Cube and a Michael Jackson tape. And then there's another item that's coming down. It's being thrown into the water, and it is labeled 1960 Niagara Falls, and it's got the radioactive symbol on that as well. And it's being pushed down, shall we say, into the depths by a skull and crossbones. And the second cartoon is by Steve Kelly of Creator Syndicate. And it's either a mom with two kids or a school teacher addressing two children that have backpacks on. And she says, "You two have to promise there'll be no more fighting." And one boy looks up at her and says, "Sorry, but the best we can do is the non-binding memo of understanding." Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. America needs to embrace proportional representation. On America's semi-quintennial, our 250th year of liberty, I call on our state and federal representatives and senators to take America seriously. This is the time to affirm the fundamental proposition of our Declaration of Independence. We are all entitled to equal representation. This is the time to slay the gerrymander, eliminate the political class, and restore the people's government. This is the time for proportional representation, PR. The most common voting system in advanced Western democracies, PR replaces arbitrary single representative districts with natural geographic regions represented by multiple legislators. For example, the people of Western New York, from Buffalo to Syracuse, might collectively send 5 representatives to the House, chosen from across the region. Combined with a multi-choice ballot where the voter ranks their preferences, PR creates space for independent candidates and political minorities, so our legislator looks less like an ideological cage match and more like America. Imagine an America where you could actually choose the candidate who best represents your interests, not the lesser of two evils pre-selected by the parties. PR could make that America real. Ideally, Congress would use funding incentives to encourage PR nationwide. If we can't muster the political courage for that, let's at least enact it in New York. Choosing one's voters to ensure victory by simply drawing some lines on a map is an awfully attractive proposition to politicians. But I hope that my legislators haven't lost all their humanity and trust the American people to elect a healthy, effective legislature. I hope they will consider PR. It's time. This from Adam Wolf of West Seneca. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. New stadium evokes glorious memories. It is truly amazing that the new Highmark Stadium is nearly complete and will be hosting events very shortly. Never a week went by after the initial shovel went in the dirt that this lifelong Bills fan did not navigate himself past the stadium construction site for a wondrous look-see on perhaps the greatest football venue ever constructed in the NFL. This will be the third stadium where I will, potentially, enjoy the privilege of attending a Bills game over my lifetime, with the first two, of course, being War Memorial Stadium, aka the Rock Pile, and the oft-renamed Rich Stadium. I still can recall my father's friend, my friend's father, inviting my dad and me to attend a Bills game with his son and my friend back in the 1960s. We sat in a far end zone, as I recall, under the old Sears and Roebuck scoreboard, which was manually run back then. We sat on old wooden bleachers, but to me they were the best seats in the house. Seeing my beloved Bills up close, sort of, and in person was one of the highlights of my childhood. Jack Kemp, Billy Shaw, Tom Sesek, Ray Carlton, Jim Dunaway, Elbert Dubanian, Cookie Gilchrist, Butch Bird, Mike Stratton, George Stames, Tom Day, Ron McDowell, and others were members of the best team in the AFL for several years. My only disappointment is that the emblem on the new stadium does not have the standing red buffalo attached to it. And this is written by Jim Ants of Cheektowaga. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Goals for Canalside should be clarified. While the state's plan for the North Odd block at Canalside may well increase the number of affordable apartments there, it will do little, if anything, to transform the area into a vibrant, mixed-use urban area that so many Buffalonians desire. Indeed, if the latter were in fact our goal, public money would be far more effectively spent by supporting and encouraging the creation at Canalside of market-rate, not low-income apartments. If this area in particular and downtown in general is to thrive, it needs people, hundreds of them, living there with disposable income, residents with the wherewithal to support the businesses and activities that comprise healthy downtowns. If increasing the supply of affordable housing is the goal, the state's plan is laudable. If the goal, however, is to transform the area into an attractive and sought-after vital and dynamic urban neighborhood, it is not. As a community, we need to be clear from the outset what our goals are for the area before making irreparable decisions about the best path forward. This from Mark Goldman of Buffalo. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio Readings Service. The time is 9:32. Some opinion columns. This one is from Froma Harrop of Creator Syndicate. Politicians' names on public works is just free advertising. When workers scraped Donald Trump's name off the John F. Kennedy Performing Arts Center, they should have taken Kennedy's name off as well and restored the building to its original simple title, the National Culture Center. After President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, Congress renamed the center for him. The New York International Airport, charmingly referred to as Idlewild, suddenly became the John F. Kennedy International Airport, and hundreds of schools across the country plastered John F. Kennedy on their facades. It is one thing to name airports, bridges, and other public works for a handful of great presidents who saved the country: George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, FDR, Dwight Eisenhower. It's another to similarly memorialize ordinary politicians for posterity, even those who did a mostly good job. Why did they change the short, descriptive name of Washington National Airport to the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport? Reagan and JFK were popular, but neither left behind achievements to justify turning airports into their shrines. Kennedy was young, charismatic, and died tragically, but as president, he did not good things. He authorized the Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba, a fiasco. He didn't start U.S. involvement in Vietnam, but he expanded it. And he was a serial womanizer, in some cases risking national security. But Kennedy and his circle were masters at peddling their era as Camelot, the myth of a golden age. In an interview shortly after the assassination, JFK's widow, the glamorous Jacqueline Kennedy, quoted the "one brief shining moment" line from the musical Camelot. Since then, Kennedy after Kennedy has run for office off the curated glow. Most were elected and some were competent, but this free promotion of America's royal family drowned the arguments of more qualified, hard-working public servants who want the jobs. Now we have JFK's grandson, Jack Schlossberg, running for Jerry Nadler's congressional district covering Manhattan's wealthy Upper East and Upper West sides. The Democrat who secures the nomination is almost sure to win in November. Schlossberg has arguably less than zero qualifications. His chief achievement at 33 is as an influencer on social media. Nonetheless, New York tabloids are putting the words Camelot and Kennedy mystique in their headlines about his campaign. One political writer gushed that a Kennedy was running. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made a fool of herself endorsing Schlossberg on a TV ad with a tagline, "Believe in something again." Everyone knows the handsome fellow is the son of Carolyn Kennedy. Another Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is busy putting America's lives at risk as head of the Department of the Health and Human Services. RFK Jr. is a crackpot famous for bashing life-saving vaccines. On taking over HHS, he fired all 17 members of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, booted about 20,000 employees, and slashed cutting-edge medical research. Why did Trump choose him? Bobby is a colorful kook who endorsed Trump in 2024. What makes him extra fun for the unserious is that he's a Kennedy. RFK Jr. is the son of Robert F. Kennedy. New Yorkers driving toward what they still call the Triborough Bridge see that it's now called the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge, named after Bobby's dad after he was assassinated. The elder RFK moved into the state the day he proclaimed his candidacy to represent New York in the Senate. Politicos naming public works after other politicos, or in Trump's case, himself, is a racket. It is free advertising on tax-supported government structures. Stop it. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From Susan Estrich. Professionals must be in charge of the Justice Department. I'm not one to generally quote Senate Majority Leader John Thune as my authority on cabinet appointees, but when it comes to Bill Pulte, the housing chief with no national security experiments who was President Trump's first choice for Director of National Intelligence, he was right to express concern. The only reason Pulte was appointed is that he has used his position to attack Trump's enemies, scouring their mortgage applications, looking to make a federal case. What Thune said that struck with me was not that he had no experience, but citing the experience he had. He said that the National Intelligence Director's job shouldn't be weaponized and should be led by professionals. Hear, hear. John Thune. What about de-weaponizing the Justice Department and letting the professionals there do their jobs? Republican Senators Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, and John Cornyn of Texas, all of whom are leaving the Senate, also expressed concerns about Pulte. Will they express similar concerns about Trump's choice of Todd Blanche to be Attorney General? Under Blanche's active leadership, the Justice Department has been weaponized not only to pursue Trump's agenda, but to punish his enemies. His confirmation hearings and the vote on his confirmation provide a rare opportunity for a midterm course correction by the DOJ. According to press reports and insiders, the department is in shambles, suffering from a mass exodus of talented lawyers and leaders and plunging morale. The presumption that used to favor the government in federal court has been dramatically lost in the excuses and mistakes that have resulted. The lawyers are overworked and overwrought, finding themselves in impossible situations in court. Grand juries, notoriously compliant with prosecutors, are saying no to high-profile revenge prosecutions and immigration overreactions. You couldn't find someone better qualified to weaponize the DOJ than Blanche. He is in the position he is because he was Trump's personal lawyer and because his so-called boss, Pam Biondi, reportedly did not move aggressively enough against Trump's enemies. The havoc wreaked on the Justice Department was not enough for him. Left to his own devices, the future looks grim. But Blanche is not left to his own devices, not if he wants to be confirmed, which will take the votes of senators who owe nothing to Trump and may yet lose re-election. Susan Collins of Maine, because of their ties to him. Congress has not distinguished itself by standing up to Trump's weaponization of the federal government. But the revolt over the $1.8 billion slush fund and the reversal of course on Pulte signal that the closing months of this Congress might yet be different. Both Tillis, one of Republican leaders of the fight against the $1.8 billion fund who is retiring, and Cornyn, who, along with Cassidy, can thank Trump for having lost his primary, are on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which will hold hearings on Blanche this summer. Tillis railed against the fund as politically tone-deaf. As for Cornyn, he told reporters this week, "I'm interested in hearing how he, Blanche, would approach the job, because he was President Trump's lawyer at one time. But if he's an AG, he won't be the presidential lawyer." Blanche's nomination is an opportunity for the Senate Judiciary to insist on a mid-course correction in the weaponization of the DOJ. The committee's oversight of the department has been woefully lacking, and now is the time, and now they have the leverage to do something about it. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Excitement over stadium helps to fill game day jobs. Christopher Ciccato is a lifetime Buffalo Bills fan who needed part-time work to supplement his full-time job. What better opportunity than to work at the new Highmark Stadium, where the Bills will begin playing games for the 26th season in August. He'd thought about working at the stadium before, but never came across the opportunity until he heard about Monday's job fair hosted by the new concessionaire, Legends Global. Ciccato, who's worked in the craft beer industry in places like Aurora Brew Works in East Aurora, was hired as a beer tender less than 2 months before the over $2 billion stadium is set to open. Legends held the 3-hour job fair at the Kaleida Health Performance Center to fill out jobs for stadium culinary, concessions, and premium job staff, including cooks, dishwashers, supervisors, attendants, catering, servers, beer tenders, bartenders, warehouse and retail cashiers. The company expects to have approximately 600 part-time and full-time employees at the stadium, with up to 1,200 workers needed for each home game. Several hundred of those game and event day hires were expected to be made Monday. Excuse me. I just wanted something part-time and not completely year-round, and thought it would be cool to be a part of the new stadium and new era for the Bills, Ciccato said. I figured get in while I can, because I know these jobs can be hard to get once others get them. Legends had already hired hundreds of workers to come over from the old to new stadium this season. The job fair helped the company to fill out the rest of the opening positions, mostly for event and game day staff. The company was making job offers on the spot, conducting interviews, and then setting them up with human resources. Legend was also looking to link up with nonprofit groups to help some of the concessions services. We had a pretty good push filling jobs with that first round and bringing on previous employees from Delaware North. So this is just kind of getting the rest of the talent in the building, because obviously it's a tall task opening a large building, and we need some more people to pull off what we want to pull off in there, said Matt Maurer, Assistant General Manager for Legends Global. We're just trying to be efficient with it and get all the way through the process all at once. The next opportunity came at the right time for Jennifer Newman of West Seneca. The hours she worked at her previous job did not make it possible for her to have a position at the stadium, but this summer she was available. It's exactly what I was looking for, and I get to be part of all the excitement, said Newman, a longtime fan of the team, who will be working as an atrium attendant in the suites at the stadium. I've been in Buffalo my entire life, and this is something I've never had the opportunity to do before, she said. With the organization doing so well and the way the city responds to the Bills, to be part of it is something that's really special. I'm happy about being in the new stadium and thankful for the opportunity. Maurer said there is a sense of excitement that comes with working at the new stadium, and Legends is taking advantage of that in building out a staff there. The orientation process will be next for those hired at the job fair, and much of the training for the jobs will happen during July. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. SpaceX buying Cursor for $60 billion in bid to boost AI code writing. SpaceX is now bigger than Microsoft. Its shares are more popular than every other stock on the market combined, and it just bought an AI company for $60 billion. And Tuesday was just SpaceX's third full day of public trading. The latest splash in its history-making debut is SpaceX's long-sought acquisition of Cursor, an AI agent that can write code and competes with Anthropic's Claude Code and OpenAI's Codex. SpaceX said in April that Cursor had given SpaceX the right to buy it. Snatching up Cursor, one of the fastest growing AI coding tools, could go a long way in helping SpaceX catch up to market leaders OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. Cursor is used by 64% of Fortune 500 firms, according to the company's website. The all-stock deal will add to SpaceX's considerable AI capital expenditures. The company, combined with CEO Elon Musk's xAI early this year, with the ambition to eventually launch data centers into space. The promise? Cheap cooling from space and free electricity from the sun, combined with SpaceX's Starlink satellite network for beaming communications back and forth. The problem? The wild expense. Another concern, xAI is trailing its rivals, which have made significant leaps in capabilities, particularly in the ultra-competitive and potentially lucrative enterprise space. Anthropic's Mythos tool has grown so capable in recent months that the Trump administration blocked access for foreign nationals. To compete, SpaceX spent $12.7 billion on AI last year and $7.7 billion on the technology in the first 3 months of 2026 alone. Now it owes Cursor $60 billion in stock. Those huge expenses have contributed to multi-billion-dollar losses. $4.9 billion last year and $4.3 billion in the first quarter of 2026. Nevertheless, SpaceX believes the expense is well worth it. The company predicted in a regulatory filing that enterprise AI applications will become a $22.7 trillion market in the near future. As with Tesla, investors are buying on the promise for the future and less on today's perhaps less than savory fundamentals. SpaceX has been an enormously popular investment. The stock has risen more than 19% in each of its first 2 days on the stock market, and it was up another 10% by midday Tuesday. The stock traded above $210 a share, valuing the company at nearly $2.8 trillion. That's enough to put it just above Microsoft for fourth place on the list of most valuable companies on the stock market, behind only Apple, Google, and Nvidia. SpaceX blew past Amazon earlier in the trading session. The sky-high valuation has been propelled by some truly surreal buying behavior from everyday investors. Despite the sky-high valuation and massive expenses, retail traders have bought SpaceX shares nearly as much as they have purchased all other stocks, combined, according to market data analytics company Vanda Research. On Monday, SpaceX accounted for nearly 3/4 of all single stock purchases among retail investors, Vanda Research reported. The company that's accustomed to defying gravity is now defying market physics. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Carr, Robert. Farolino, Robert V. King, Laverne. Morehouse, Patricia, née McGinnis. O'Neill, Monica H., née Harmon. Polito, Carmelo R., Carl, Red, Williams, Frederick, and the Love Island USA production team is mourning the loss of executive producer James Barker, who died last week while on set in Fiji. The Love Island USA producers, ITV America and Peacock confirmed Barker's death in a media release shared with the Times on Monday. The announcement said that Barker died after an unexpected medical emergency, but did not provide additional information. He was 40. If you need further information on any of these names, give us a call at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. You want to improve human society. You have progressive ideas and you're imaginative, tenacious, and persuasive. This is a year of service to others. Take care of yourself so you can be a support for those who turn on to you. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, 1 difficult. Aries, 3 stars. Your verbal skills are great today. However, parents need to cut their kids some slack because power struggles might arise. Tonight, socialize. Taurus, 3 stars. Your well-meaning intentions might backfire on you when dealing with parents and authority figures today. Tonight, relax at home. Gemini, 3 stars. Steer clear of conflict with others, especially about conversational subjects like politics, religion, and racial issues. Tonight, interesting discussions. Cancer, 3 stars. Try to avoid power struggles about money and financial control today. These issues might arise. It could be about a specific possession, something you own. Tonight, check your money. Leo, 3 stars. Today the moon is lined up with fair Venus, making you eager to get out and socialize. In fact, you want to party. Tonight you win. Virgo, 4 stars. People admire you today. Furthermore, your relations with friends and groups are warm and smooth. Tonight, enjoy solitude. Libra, 3 stars. You like to get along with others because you like harmony in your surroundings. Initially today, you will be warm-hearted for a friend. Tonight, be friendly. Scorpio, 2 stars. Power struggles with authority figures might arise today. You also might find yourself at odds with spouses, partners, or close friends. Tonight, you're admired. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Power struggles with family members, parents, and bosses might create challenges for you today. Tonight, learn and explore. Capricorn, 3 stars. It might be tough to avoid money squabbles today. Initially, you have specific ideas about spending money. Tonight, check your finances. Aquarius, 2 stars. You have no choice other than to cooperate with others today to keep the peace and to achieve with what you want to do. Tonight, listen and cooperate with others. Pisces, 3 stars. Struggles related to your health, parents, and your work might be a challenge today. Tonight, get better organized. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. Hints from Heloise. Dear Heloise, people have written to you with tips on how to dry clothes that you have hand washed, usually while traveling. But there's one step that most people don't seem to know about. After you wash clothes, and I've read that using shampoo is generally better than soap for this purpose, wring them out as hard as you can, then roll them up into a towel. Most people might know about these steps, but the key next step is then to walk on the folded up towel, flip it over, and walk on the other side as well. The body weight of walking on a towel really gets a great deal of moisture out of the clothing, and it dries much faster. I read about this tip several years ago, and we've used it frequently when we travel. Also, when trying to keep dish sponges clean, I also read many years ago to just put your sponge on the top rack of the dishwasher when you run it. It certainly helps clean and sanitize the sponge or dishcloth. Thanks for your hints. I've read your column since I was a little girl, and now I'm a grandmother. And that's from Susan. Flying with e-cigarettes. Dear Heloise, traveling can be stressful. There are so many things to manage before you even reach the departure gate, and the last thing anybody needs is to be stopped because of an item that seemed completely harmless to pack. But some everyday items come with strict aviation rules that many travelers simply aren't aware of. Just lost the page, folks. Bear with me. Not knowing them can mean having your luggage opened, getting items removed, and facing delays that are entirely avoidable. What's the item? The item is a vape or e-cigarette. Small and personal, it's the kind of thing that gets tossed into a suitcase without a second thought. But the Federal Aviation Administration has had a firm rule in place since 2016. Vapes, e-cigarettes, and spare lithium batteries must be carried in carry-on luggage only. They aren't permitted in checked baggage under any circumstances, regardless of the airline or the airport. And that's from Danielle. Freezing chips. Dear Heloise, I have been sealing my chips and crackers in bags, which I then put in the freezer. They last for months without going stale by using this method of storage. And that's from Gail. And replacing glass windows. Dear Heloise, in regards to Jacqueline, who recently wrote about spots on a double pane window that won't come off, I think the issue is that moisture has gotten between the two panes of glass. When insulating glass is manufactured, the air space is filled with argon gas. Over time, mostly from unknown reasons, the seal will fall, the gas will escape, and the airspace gets filled with ambient air that contains moisture. Over time, the spots and discoloration will increase. The only option is to replace the glass. My comments come from 26 years of working in residential construction and 22 years as a licensed home inspector, and that was from John. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. From the Political Notebook. Tillis is optimistic about AG nominee. Washington. President Trump's nomination of Todd Blanche to lead the U.S. Justice Department was met with cautious optimism by a key Republican senator who has repeatedly split with the administration on other issues. Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, a member of the Judiciary Committee, said he's generally satisfied with Blanche's paperwork and plans to meet with him next week. Trump last week nominated Blanche, who had been one of his personal lawyers, to serve as the permanent replacement for Attorney General Pam Biondi, who was fired in April despite simmering GOP frustrations with the president and Blanche over a proposed $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund intended to compensate people who claim they were victimized by the government. After strong opposition to the fund arose among Republicans as well as Democrats, Blanche told a congressional hearing early this month that the proposal was being scrapped, though he declined to put that in writing. During a hearing on Friday, U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema rebuffed the government's arguments that Blanche's public statements were sufficient confirmation. She entered an order blocking officials from taking action on the fund while the litigation moves forward. Trump, in recent days, has made positive statements about payments for his allies, raising doubts about whether the plan truly has been abandoned. Tillis, who retires in January, has already threatened to block any Attorney General nominee who has spoken positively about the people who rioted at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and he has harshly criticized the fund proposal. Senator John Cornyn of Texas, another Judiciary Committee Republican whose vote will be crucial, said he planned to meet with Blanche on Tuesday or Wednesday. Trump last month endorsed Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in a runoff against Cornyn. Paxton won, effectively ending Cornyn's political career. With a narrow Republican majority, both Cornyn and Tillis could stall Blanche's confirmation. And feds balk a program to pay reparations. The Trump administration said Tuesday it will challenge a reparations program for black residents in a Chicago suburb of Evanston, while the city's mayor defended the program. Evanston offered reparation money for black residents whose families suffered lasting damage from decades of discriminatory practice. It marked the first step by a U.S. city. Black residents of the city are eligible for the housing program if they or their ancestors lived in the city between 1919 and 1967, and they can show they suffered housing discrimination due to the city's policies. Approved in 2019, the program provides grants up to $25,000. The Justice Department claimed in a statement that the program was discriminatory. And briefly, weapons supply. President Donald Trump invoked the Defense Production Act to address constraints in weapons supply and development for munitions production and supply chains, according to a memo made public Tuesday. There is growing concern in Washington about the capacity of U.S. weapons manufacturers to meet demand.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, June 17th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beenan.
On to some local and regional news. Seneca Casino to sponsor Sabres home jersey patch. A lifetime partner of the Buffalo Sabres that is also a major stake in the future of the Cobblestone District around KeyBank Center is stepping up its sponsorship of the team. Seneca Resorts and Casinos will become the home jersey patch sponsor for the Sabres, reaching a deal that significantly elevates its 15-year relationship. It is a multi-year deal that industry experts estimate is worth more than $2 million. It's also an investment in the neighborhood around the arena. Seneca Buffalo Creek Casino, one of 3 casinos owned by the Corporation of the Seneca Nation of Indians, is just a few blocks from the downtown arena, so the deal only helps the two feed off each other's success. Part of the team's strategy heading into the new lease negotiations at KeyBank Center has been to show why it's worth putting a big public investment into needed arena upgrades and what the payback will be for downtown. As the Sabres capitalize on the excitement of the team breaking a 14-year season playoff drought and continue to fill the arena with an assortment of events, ancillary development could increase as foot traffic grows in the area. There's a real opportunity for both organizations to create a real destination quarter between the casino and KeyBank Center, said Jake Vernon, Chief Commercial Officer for the Sabres. We share a home in the Cobblestone District together, and we both have a commitment to Western New York, he added. As we evolve from the Cobblestone experience, looks like it makes sense for us to team up with this sponsorship asset. It also fills a gap that had Sabres missing out on a key source of revenue that most NHL already enjoy. After 4 years of searching, the Sabres now have a home and road game jersey patch sponsor. Of the 32 NHL teams, 29 have locked in home jersey patch sponsors. Amherst headquartered building solutions company Stark Tech reached a 5-year agreement to become the Sabres' first road jersey patch partner starting next season. And more corporate partnerships are expected to be signed during the off-season. Since opening in 2013, Seneca Buffalo Creek Casino at 1 Fulton Street has been part of the Sabres game day experience. The casino has served as a site of live broadcasts, hosted alumni meet and greets, and served as a gathering place for fans before and after games. Seneca Resorts and Casino will also continue to sponsor the Sabres' annual Native American Heritage Night, which infuses Native American education and programming into a Sabres game day each season. The casino is already a major part of the Sabres game day experience and has significant sponsorship assets around the 300 level. The two sides will build out more promotions and entertainment assets around home games, connecting both customer bases. Additionally, the casino hosted a road game watch party during the playoffs and sponsored the arena watch party during Game 6 of the second round. Partnering with the team has become increasingly appealing since it started winning, with team reaching record numbers for fan affinity, social media views and engagement, and local and national TV broadcasts. That's helped the team close on 2 jersey patch sponsors, which was one of Vernon's main focuses when he came to the Sabres last summer. He also expects to bring on 10 to 12 new partners from a variety of industries going into next season. The team has fewer than 100 season tickets remaining to sell in its available inventory after adding more than 4,000 season ticket members and enjoying great success in launching 10-game packages for next season. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. DeNapoli faces 2 challengers after years without one. Warshaw Goyle aimed to defeat Comptroller in Democratic primary. Albany, in his nearly 2-decade tenure as New York's chief fiscal officer, State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli survived a pandemic, the convictions of legislative powerhouses, and the administrations of 4 governors, 2 of whom resigned amid scandals. This year he has a new challenge: competition from within his own party. If DiNapoli wants to stay comptroller, he must defeat challengers Drew Warshaw and Raj Goyle in a Democratic primary on June 23rd. Warshaw, a nonprofit housing executive, is a former chief of staff at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Goyle, a former Kansas state lawmaker who founded a legal technology company, led Phone Free New York, a nonprofit that advocated for the state's bell-to-bell ban on smartphones in schools. DiNapoli has not faced a primary since being thrust into the role of comptroller in February 2007. State lawmakers voted him into the office following the conviction and resignation of successor Alan Hevesi. New York voters re-elected DiNapoli in 2010, 2014, 2018, and 2022. As the sole trustee of the state's pension fund, DiNapoli manages the retirement plans of municipal workers across New York. His office releases some 350 audits of state and local government agencies a year. In Western New York, DiNapoli offices revealed the economic mayhem in the city of Dunkirk, whose former treasurer, Mark A. Woods, was charged with ripping off more than $120,000 from the city. And last month, the office released a report showing the city of Buffalo had a structural deficit of $103,000. DiNapoli, 72, a Nassau County native elected to the Mineola School Board at 18, graduated from Hofstra University and the New School University's Graduate School of Management and Urban Professions. He served in the assembly for 20 years. Now he leads an office, he said, exhibits independence and absence of partisanship. We're often the only set of eyes that are looking at the books and making a judgment, DiNapoli told the Buffalo News. DiNapoli said the agency's long-term goal for returns on investments in the state pension fund is 5.9%. In May, the Comptroller's Office reported an estimated investment return of 11.94% for the fiscal year that ended March 3rd. The estimated value of the fund at $295.4 billion is the highest end-of-year value in the fund's history. DiNapoli noted that unions representing municipal workers, which include New York State AFL-CIO, CSEA, NYSUT, and PEF, among others, endorsed him for re-election. I think the fact that we have such well-regarded pension fund that provides that retirement security for our members is a very significant accomplishment, and I'm very proud of it, DiNapoli said. His opponents disagree strongly. In a three-way debate on Spectrum News on May 21st, Warshaw and Goyle cast DiNapoli as a do-nothing elected official who is too reluctant to engage the Trump administration or use the office's bully pulpit for New York's benefit in the wake of health care cuts and immigration raids. They both criticized DiNapoli for using hundreds of investment managers to manage the pension fund, which they contend has greatly underperformed. Both challengers said DiNapoli should have invested in low-cost index funds. They slammed DiNapoli for investments in Planter Technologies, which contracts with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and investments with fossil fuel companies and foreign bonds. They said DiNapoli needed to audit counties that have agreements with ICE, and that he needed to conduct better audits of the Public Service Commission, which approves utility rate hikes. DiNapoli, during the debate, called both men jokers that he said lacked an understanding of the parameters of the controller's job. He suggested they run for governor or the state legislature if they want the changes they sought. Warshaw and Goyle later participated in another debate in which DiNapoli did not participate. Both Warshaw and Goyle have Ivy League histories and professional resumes they say put them in perfect position to operate the comptroller's office. Warshaw, 45, a native of Manhattan who graduated from Cornell University and earned an MBA from Columbia Business School, is an executive with Enterprise Community Partners, a nonprofit he created that he noted has preserved more than 1 million affordable homes. He said, "It makes no sense to me that DiNapoli invests far too often in real estate outside of the state instead of historically underinvested cities upstate. Warshaw's experience translated into the comptroller's office would bring far better returns for New Yorkers' pensions," he said, proposing a $20 billion investment in housing. "We can have perfectly economic investment, ready deals in downtown Buffalo, in Rochester, and Syracuse, Warshaw told the news. And that's where we would invest this historic level of investments and earn a higher rate of return than the current pension fund does. We have done this for a living. This is not rocket science. We just need someone who is willing to do it. Warshaw questioned why the incumbent did not respond quicker to Buffalo's financial crisis, calling it fundamentally malpractice. Warshaw alleged that the office's Division of Local Government and School Accountability was not doing its job well enough, an allegation DiNapoli has sharply refuted. Goyle, 21, of Manhattan, grew up in Wichita, Kansas, and later graduated from Duke University and Harvard Law School. He studied abroad in South Africa, worked for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and later the ACLU to fight for immigrant and civil rights, he said. Goyle, who served as a member of the Kansas House of Representatives from 2007 to 2011, ran for Congress against future Trump administration Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Goyle told the news he was running for controller because better Democrats were needed to fight what he called a five-alarm crisis for our democracy, in addition to an affordability crisis. Tom is, of course, a very nice man, and he's had a distinguished record of service. But I do think that it's time for a change, Goyle said. The chief financial officer of the most important home to the financial markets of the United States of America should be somebody who is known, who is active, and also works with the other blue state pension funds to make sure we use our economic leverage to put more money in people's pockets. Goyle said the worst thing to do at this point in history is to waste political power. DiNapoli's campaign fund had a balance of $563,018 as of January 15, 2025. He has since raised $4.28 million and spent $3.48 million, leaving a balance of $1.36 million as of the 11-day pre-primary period, according to the State Board of Elections. He has received $2.26 million in public campaign matching funds and spent $2.47 eligible to be covered by matching funds. In that same time period, Warshaw has spent $3.44 million and spent $2.94 million, leaving a balance of $498,190. He has received more than $1 million in matching funds and spent $1.33 million eligible to be covered by matching funds. Goyle has raised $3.91 million and spent $3.39 million, leaving a balance of $522,978 according to campaign filings dated to January 15th. He has no prior filings. He has received $1.94 million in matching funds and spent $3.23 million eligible to be covered by matching funds.
Thank you, Larry. Taste of Buffalo will feature new cuisine and classics. To the Western New Yorker, the Loganberry barbecue burger might sound like something out of a child's fairy tale, a sweet, tangy, plum-colored sauce reminiscent of the glory days of Crystal Beach. It could bring a tear to any Buffalo native's eye, but it requires so many napkins. But AJ's Kitchen's ode to local cuisine is real, and it's the kind of food that captures the mood of the 43rd Annual Taste of Buffalo Festival on July 11th and 12th. Organizers have said the event is the largest two-day food festival in the country. The festival's organizers held a preview on Tuesday featuring some of the fare for the annual street festival set to take shape downtown next month. The unique Buffalo energy that we create in those spaces year after year has remained a staple for our summers here in the city of Buffalo, and it really reminds us how special this community is, said Deputy Mayor Thomas Baines. Taste of Buffalo will host 42 restaurants and food trucks representing the Queen City's vibrant food scene this year, including Buffalo classics and popular ethnic cuisines. 15 restaurants will be making their Taste of Buffalo debut. 4 New York State wineries, Coca-Cola, and Genesee Brewing Company will be featured to provide beverages. Organizers said Tuesday that live local music and a new kids' village and interactive experience zone, which will offer family-friendly activities for guests, will also participate. Taste of Buffalo will be held along Delaware Avenue, beginning at Chippewa and continuing through Niagara Square. The event runs from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. on July 11th and from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on July 12th. Admission is free. Food and beverage tickets can be purchased at the festival. Pre-sale food ticket vouchers are available in $12 or $60 increments at any Tops location. Every year to Taste, Tops is proud to bring you the very best we have to offer, and this year is no different. Tops Senior Vice President of Operations John McCaffrey, whose store on Elmwood Avenue was the venue for Tuesday's preview. In celebration of America's 250th birthday, Tops will provide apple pies for a pie eating contest on the main stage on July 12th. Proceeds from Tops' tent at Taste of Buffalo will go to local nonprofits, Buffalo Niagara Honor Flight, and Firefighter Arno Memorial Foundation. Taste of Buffalo also offers scholarships to high school students in Western New York who plan to pursue careers in food service or hospitality. 5 students were awarded scholarships this year, totaling $7,500. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Aquarium of Niagara's new penguin gets Goose-inspired name. The Aquarium of Niagara has announced the name of its newborn Humboldt penguin chick, and it's hitting the Goo Goo Dolls right in the feels. After a public vote, Iris is the winning name by a landslide. The name pays homage to the breakout Buffalo band and its signature song, Iris, one of the best-selling singles of all time according to Billboard charts. Man, thank you so much to the Aquarium of Niagara and to everybody who voted in the Little Penguin naming contest. It looks like we got a penguin named Iris, said Robbie Tachek, the band's bass player. Guitarist and vocalist Johnny Resnick was touched as well. Somebody just told me that there's a new Humboldt penguin chick in the Aquarium of Niagara, and you guys named it Iris. Thank you so much, he said. It's really amazing. Iris was one of 4 names chosen by public vote for the aquarium's zoological team. The other names, which also have historical or cultural significance to Niagara Falls and Western New York, were Annie, Burnett, and Theodosia. Annie referred to Annie Edson Taylor, a school teacher who went over Niagara Falls in a barrel in 1901 at age 63. Burnett paid homage to civil rights activist Mary Burnett Talbert, who helped found the NAACP, and Theodosia harkens back to Theodosia Burr, daughter of Vice President Aaron Burr, who was the first to honeymoon in Niagara Falls in 1801. The winning name took an early lead and eventually garnered half the votes, receiving as many votes as the other 3 names combined. Fans could vote online or at the aquarium. Iris hatched in April, born to parents PJ Jr. and Bianca, who came to the aquarium in 2019 from the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle. Their arrival was part of the Association of Zoos and the Aquarium's Species Survival Plan for Humboldt penguins, which are considered vulnerable to extinction and listed on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species. ASA-accredited zoos and aquariums work together under the plan to match genetically strong penguins for breeding under human care.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:19. On to sports. Just some sports shorts first. FBI says it stopped possible UFC event threat. The FBI on Tuesday said it had thwarted a potential threat ahead of the Ultimate Fighting Championship mixed martial arts event in Washington last weekend and has multiple people in custody. Fox News Digital cited unidentified sources as saying the alleged plot involved using explosive-laden drones to hit buildings near the event. And the Williams sisters to play at Wimbledon. Serena Williams and Venus Williams received a doubles wildcard invitation to compete at Wimbledon. The All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club announced Tuesday. The grass court tournament begins June 29th. Serena is 44. Venus will turn 46 on Wednesday. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Different perspective. Turning to hockey here. How the Sabres view Ruff's winning philosophies. Lindy Ruff was ready to face the Carolina Hurricanes. 2 days after the Buffalo Sabres Stanley Cup playoffs run ended with a Game 7 loss to Montreal, the Sabres head coach declared that the Sabres should still be playing spring hockey. The Sabres never got to face off the eventual Stanley Cup champion Hurricanes. Ruff, though, considered how reaching the final game of the second round of the playoffs against the Canadiens will impact the immediate future of his team. To get to that point was really hard, Ruff said. Now the understanding of how hard it's going to be to make sure we start the year the right way. There's going to be teams that are going to walk into this building. They're not taking us for granted. They're not going, well, we're in Buffalo. They've got the respect of a good team. Now, we've got to get ready from day one to win hockey games. The Sabres wouldn't have gotten to within a goal of the Eastern Conference Final against the eventual Stanley Cup champions without Ruff's tutelage. Ruff returned as coach of the Sabres in April 2024 and spent the first season negotiating personalities, implementing team values, and learning the styles of a cross-section of players. It wasn't an easy transition. The Sabres finished 36, 39, and 7 in 24-25, out of the playoffs for a 14th straight season. The Sabres finished 50, 23, and 9 and made the playoffs this year. The remarkable turnaround came from a philosophical shift. Don't get too comfortable. It came with trusting the top 4 defensemen not only to play defense, but to get involved with the offense. It came with an unorthodox goaltending strategy. Keep 3 goalies instead of 2. It also rewarded Ruff. The Sabres announced May 20th, 2 days after being eliminated from the playoffs, that he had agreed to a 2-year contract extension with the coach, who is in his second term with the Sabres. Here's a closer look at how some of the decisions made by Ruff helped the Sabres this season. Philosophical shift. Ruff has been involved in coaching since 1993 when he joined Roger Nielsen's staff with the Florida Panthers as an assistant coach. So he's seen many methods of how coaches and leaders motivate players. He's maximized that with this year's Sabres after his first get-to-know-you season in 2024-25. He's so good at pushing us, Sabres defenseman Rasmus Dahlin said of Ruff. That's the main thing. There's no time for effing around. You've got to be uncomfortable every day. That's what really helped us as a group. We took care of the other stuff, but he really made sure he pushed us every day. That brought a lot of success, I'm sure. Many point to the Sabres' December turnaround when a 10-game win streak helped set up the Sabres' playoff pursuit. But it also was a matter of the Sabres embracing a certain mentality. Don't accept the status quo. When you're comfortable, that's the kiss of death, Sabres forward Tage Thompson said. Anytime you become comfortable or complacent with where you're at, you stop trying to get better. If things are uncomfortable, whether it's a practice or in the gym, uncomfortable conversations, things that you don't want to do necessarily or that are hard, but make you better. That's all our team is about. Ruff, like many, doesn't want to see this team become a one-hit wonder. As the Sabres scattered for the summer, he outlined his next set of expectations. Invest in the off-season work. Take care of and maintain a personal fitness level. Lindsay's big proponent of that. Testing guys, limits, and seeing what there is, and that if you can move that threshold a little further, Thompson said. Top 4 defensive pairings. The Sabres relied on 2 static pairings among their top 4 defensemen in the second half of the season. Dahlin and Matthias Samuelsson on the top pairing, and Bowen Byram and Owen Power on the second pairing in the final 42 regular season games, and then in all 13 playoff games. It was effective on defense and impacted the offense. Dahlin set career best marks in scoring, 19 goals, 55 assists, and was a finalist for the Norris Trophy given to the NHL's top defenseman. Samuelsson nearly tripled his offensive output from last season, finished with a career-high 13 goals and 28 assists in 78 games, up from 4 goals and 10 assists in 62 games in 24-25, and tied for 7th in the NHL in a plus-minus at plus 41. Byram wasn't afraid to drive the net when he had scoring chances. He also scored 5 game-winning goals. That comes from just one, having the freedom to do that, which obviously Lindy gives us that freedom, said Byram, who scored a career-best 42 points, 11 goals, 31 assists. He recognizes it as the strength of our individual games. We all skate well enough that we can recover, and when we get caught, and I feel like our forwards do a great job of covering and tracking and reloading and pressuring the puck, not only on the forecheck, but making it easy for us to read pitches. But also tracking the puck back to our own man, which just keeps the pressure on the other team, no matter who's backing you up or playing defense at that moment in time. When you feel like you're getting swarmed all the time, it's tough to make plays. It's definitely a unique style. The Sabres allowed 2.93 goals against and 29.1 shots in 82 regular season games. The Sabres expected goals against in all situations, expected goals from the unblocked shot attempts taken on the goalie, stabilized in the 42 regular season games according to MoneyPuck.com. It spiked to 3.65 on October 22nd, then hovered anywhere between 3.07 on January 3rd, the first time the four played on the Sabres' top two defensive pairings, and 3.31 for the remainder of the season, using three goalies. The Sabres never really had an established number one goalie this season. Instead, the Sabres did something unconventional by NHL standards. They kept three goalies on their roster. Alex Lyon with a 20-10-4 with a .907 save percentage, a 2.77 goals against average, and 3 shutouts. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was 22-9-3 with a .910 save percentage, a 2.52 goals against average, and 1 shutout. Colton Ellis was 8-4-2 with a .903 save percentage, a 2.90 goals against average, and 1 shutout. All three missed stretches of the season due to various injuries, and with three goalies, the Sabres had the security of having goalies who stayed crisp, particularly for the postseason. You feel mentally and physically great pretty much every game when you get that, Luukkonen said. It was a rotation that worked, but it wouldn't have worked if they didn't bring what they did to the table. NHL teams will be required to have an emergency backup goalie, or EBUG, on the roster for 2026-27 season under terms of the new collective bargaining agreement. Ruff and General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen said last month the Sabres are leaning towards keeping three goalies on their roster. Our thoughts are, instead of an EBUG, why wouldn't you just have three, Ruff said. What if both goalies go down or both goalies are sick? The three goaltenders worked. I think we proved that it worked. I know it's a new concept for a lot of people, but there was more than one team that was carrying three goaltenders for a great part of the year. In my eyes, it has to work because these guys got along. All three of those guys got along. All three pushed each other, shared the net, and tried to make each other better.
Thank you, Larry. Fresh look won't be enough for Dolphins. Okay, why am I reading about the Dolphins? Editor's note, this is the first in a series looking at the Buffalo Bills' AFC East opponents entering the offseason. Today, Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are hoping for a big shift in this new era, but their hopes don't necessarily reflect the team they've put together on paper. It's a rebuild year for the Dolphins, but their major facelift likely will take some time to translate to wins. They have a new coach, new general manager, new quarterback, new receiving core, new. The Dolphins finished 7-10 last season and fired coach Mike McDaniel after 4 seasons at the helm. He's been replaced by Jeff Hafley, a first-time NFL head coach who previously served as defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. From 20 to 23, Hafley was head coach at Boston College. While Hafley worked his way up the coaching ranks on the defensive side of the ball, he was a wide receiver in his playing days. He'll likely use that background to connect further with Malik Willis, who's set to start at quarterback after 2 years backing up Jordan Love in Green Bay. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is gone, but certainly not forgotten, at least not by the Dolphins' payroll. After Tua was benched in December, the Dolphins released him, setting an NFL record that they certainly didn't want to hold, a whopping $99.2 million in dead money against the salary cap. Now the new regime Dolphins are up against the second hardest schedule in the NFL, based off the fact that their 2026 opponents had a .542 winning percentage in 2025. A quick unscientific survey of predictions has put Most people putting the Dolphins around a measly 4 wins this season. Off-season buzz. Under new general manager John Eric Sullivan, the Dolphins also revamped their wide receiver room. Their March 18th trade. I'm sorry about that, folks. Their March 18th trade of wide receiver Jalen Waddle caused a splash. Miami sent Waddle and a 2026 fourth-round pick to the Denver Broncos in exchange for 2026 draft picks in the 3rd, 1st, and 4th round. The Dolphins also released wide receiver Tyreek Hill, who remains a free agent in February. Who's new? Even accounting for coach, GM, and quarterback, there are still plenty of other new faces in Miami. The team added 13 players in the draft, starting with offensive tackle Caden Proctor, Alabama, cornerback Chris Johnson, San Diego State, in round 1. They stayed busy on day 2 of the draft, starting with linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech, in the 2nd round. The Dolphins entered the draft with 4 third-round picks, the most in the league. While they traded one of those picks, they still were able to add plenty throughout the 3 days in April. On the free agent side, the Dolphins brought in Willis, wide receiver Tutu Atwell, previously with Rams, outside linebacker Joshua Uche, Eagles, outside linebacker David Ojabo, Ravens, and wide receiver Jaleen Tolbert, Cowboys, among others. Who's gone? The McDaniel-Tua tandem is done. McDaniel is now an offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, who the Dolphins face in Week 16. Tua finds himself with the Atlanta Falcons. The Dolphins also released edge rusher Bradley Chubb, who still wound up in the AFC East with the Buffalo Bills. Miami traded veteran safety Micah Fitzpatrick to another divisional rival, the New York Jets. Offensive lineman Jack Daniels and wide receiver Nick Westbrook Ikane also moved on. Key number 25. Entering 2025, it had been 24 long seasons since the Miami Dolphins last notched a playoff win. You know what's funnier than 24? 25. The Dolphins hope it won't extend to a laughable 26 years, but with the way this roster is built, the joke might be on them. What's next? Roll out the new crew and see what happens. The Dolphins are likely in for a long season, but if they can keep their young core content, they'll have something to build on for future years. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You know, the United States is hosting the FIFA World Cup. And the headline here, U.S. MNT can ride momentum. McBride braces attack that stretched Paraguay's defense. The United States men's national team is brimming with World Cup momentum after their opening 4-1 demolition of Paraguay, gaining one of the most important commodities required for a deep run into the tournament. Former American soccer player Brian McBride told Reuters. The ex-Fulham and Everton striker who featured in the 1998, 2002, and 2006 World Cups said he could see the team gelling in their tournament tune-up against Germany when the 4-time champions had trouble dealing with penetrating runs from the likes of fullbacks Sergino Dest and Anthony Robinson. The U.S. opened its tournament champion campaign last Friday with a rampaging win that for some was unexpected, but marked a dream start for the co-hosts, whose 4 goals were their most ever in a World Cup match. You saw the foundation of what they're going to be capable of doing, McBride said. So for them to go into that atmosphere and that pressure and really execute throughout the match was something that is really exciting as they move forward. McBride praised an attack that continually stretched the Paraguay defense, adding numbers to the midfield and allowing players to express their creativity, something he had not seen before in this team. This approach will make it difficult for opponents to scout and defend against a versatile team with exciting young players, who will be filled with confidence after the performance against Paraguay, he added. The most important thing you get in the World Cup is momentum, and a lot of times that momentum can carry you on a bit of luck and some better results than expected. But certainly what it does is it gives you the belief that you're able to continue down that same path. The United States will now bide their time until Friday when they host Australia in Seattle, a match in which McBride expects a raucous crowd to energize the players and roar them onto a win that would stamp their ticket to the knockout stages. The talent is there, and you see the ideas, he said. I hope they're able to play that same way against a good Australian team that is going to be difficult to break down. Pulisic trains solo. U.S. star Christian Pulisic once again worked off to the side during the team portion of the open practice Tuesday and remains day-to-day with a left calf injury ahead of Friday's game. Pulisic, who recorded an assist and was a key player in the setup to his own goal in the World Cup opener, was subbed out of the game at halftime after he was kicked in the calf. He did not get any work on the field during the 15-minute portion of practice that media members were allowed to observe. I just got a bit of a kick first half, so I'm really hoping that it's nothing, Pulisic said after the Paraguay match. Taking a little bit of precaution, I'm hoping I'll be fine in the next few days. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:36. On to Asking Eric. Son-in-law gives lame excuse for not delivering card. Dear Eric, I had a Mother's Day card for my daughter, but needed her sons, ages 10 and 7, to sign it. Since I did not see them in time for Mother's Day, I gave it to my daughter to give to them. When I inquired about the card, my daughter's husband said he had decided not to give the card because he had already done cards for her. He said save it for next year. They are not in any financial situation where you would need to save a card for the following year. It seemed odd to me. Who does that? Just give the boys the card to sign. Was he wrong? From Card Carrying. Dear Card Carrying, this Mother's Day card sure does have some mileage on it. From you to your daughter to your son-in-law. It's reminiscent of the game of telephone, and like the game, the original intention may be getting muddled. Your son-in-law may have assumed that since he has cards for the sons, a second card from them would have been redundant. You may have seen the card from you and the boys as a separate greeting. I think the sticking point may be needing the signatures from them, especially since your daughter was tasked with the responsibility of getting her own card signed. It might be easier next time to just send a greeting from yourself. Dear Eric, over the years, I've made it a priority to invite my family to milestone events so we can bond, celebrate, and stay connected. There are a few relatives who consistently choose not to attend, which is their right, but they still become offended if they don't receive an invitation, even though they have no intention of showing up. I'm growing tired of spending time, money, and energy sending invitations to people who have made it clear they won't participate. I want to handle this in a way that doesn't create tension or spark a family feud. How should I approach this situation to set boundaries without causing unnecessary conflict? From Lost in St. Louis. Dear Lost, from your description, I'm assuming you're largely sending paper invitations, so you may consider downgrading the invites to the relatives who never show to FYIs over text. Now, this doesn't fully free up your plate, but it does reduce some of the work and expense. Most importantly, it may save you some aggravation. It's annoying that these relatives are expressing offense when they don't receive an invitation after consistently declining. In most circumstances, a pattern like this would be an indication that they're sending the message to stop inviting them. And they may well be. They just might not know it. Transferring them to update-only relatives helps to keep them in the loop and perhaps speaks to the part of them that wants to feel wanted. It can also reset the expectation on both sides. If you go into the text exchange communicating that you don't expect them to come, but you want them to know something's happening, you can shift the energy of the exchange. Dear Eric, as someone with 2 small children, a small home, and a preference for minimalistic living, I find myself sympathizing with the son and daughter-in-law referenced in the letter from insulted grandmother who was hurt that her family didn't immediately open one of the love boxes of gifts she sent. A large box full of candies, toys, school supplies, books, and gifts for every holiday might feel loving to the sender, but for some families it can feel overwhelming, especially when they are already deep in the chaos of parenting young children. Opening and managing a large package of stuff before leaving for a vacation honestly sounds more stressful than joyful. I don't think the grandmother's intentions were bad at all. In fact, they sound loving and generous. But sometimes we show love in the ways that should feel meaningful to us rather than in the ways the other family actually needs. For some families, a thoughtful card, a scheduled FaceTime date, reading a book together virtually, or even a simple check-in might feel far more supportive and relatable than frequent packages. Children do not necessarily equate love with volume of gifts, and many parents today are actively trying to reduce clutter, overstimulation, and consumerism. Grandparent relationships are incredibly valuable, but they are strongest when they feel emotionally safe, flexible, and responsive to the actual rhythms and needs of the family, from right-sized gifts. Dear gifts, this is beautifully put and wise. It's easy to get our feelings hurt when gifts aren't received in the way we want them to be, particularly when those gifts are to family. Asking what's helpful, what's needed, and what's manageable goes a very long way. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. U.S. uses Iranian smuggling tactic to sneak oil out. Dubai. The U.S. military has overseen scores of secretive ship-to-ship oil transfers to keep Gulf energy exports flowing using aerial and water drones, as well as helicopters in an operation to guide convoys to awaiting tankers. The operation on the edge of the Strait of Hormuz employs a shuttling technique long used by Iran to skirt sanctions. Two specific locations where the oil transfers take place were identified by 11 people familiar with the operation. One off the coast of Fujairah in United Arab Emirates, and the other off Oman's port of Sohar. It started in early May, and at least 92 ships have been involved in the transfers, according to shipping data and satellite imagery reviewed by Reuters. As recently as June 11, 17 pairs of ships could be seen carrying out simultaneous oil transfers at the two sites, according to satellite images reviewed by Reuters. An Apache helicopter downed by Iran on June 9th sparked retaliatory bombings by the U.S., was involved in the mission, according to four sources, including a former U.S. official with knowledge of the attack. Using satellite imagery, Reuters counted 6 pairs of tanker ships clustered together in a small area off the port of Sohar the day the Apache was shot down. The extent of the ship-to-ship transfers, how they work, and the Apache's role in the operation have not been previously reported. The White House referred questions to Central Command. The Iranian government did not respond to requests for comment about the transfer operation. The two spots where these transfers take place in the Gulf of Oman, near the exit of the Strait of Hormuz, are close to the boundaries drawn by the Persian Gulf Strait Authority, a new Iranian body established to manage the Hormuz Strait. Ships that fail to comply with Iran's orders are at risk of drone and missile attacks by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The Fujairah port itself came under repeated Iranian fire during the time the U.S.-led operation has been underway. This past weekend, according to the British maritime risk management group Vanguard, an unknown projectile struck a tanker off the coast of Oman. Vanguard said in a statement that the crew was safe and that the impact caused some leakage of the cargo, but did not specify whether the tanker was involved in a ship-to-ship transfer. Iran responded to the U.S.-Israeli war by effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz, through which about a fifth of global oil consumption normally passes. That created the biggest global energy supply disruption in history and spurred inflation around the world. The ship-to-ship transfers, through risky and inefficient, appear to be part of the Trump administration's effort to help restore normal oil flows from the Gulf. U.S. President Donald Trump claimed the Strait of Hormuz would reopen Friday under a framework peace deal with Iran announced this week, but details remain vague. Reuters could not determine whether the announced deal affected the oil transfers. A Reuters investigation published May 20th found Iran established its own system for ushering ships through the opposite sides of the strait, involving island checkpoints, diplomatic deals, and sometimes fees, staggered departures. The American transfer operations are fully controlled by the U.S. military, said 8 of the sources, including a private security contractor who was involved in the transfers. Tankers must sail to a meeting point before they reach the strait, then stagger their departures so they are about 3,000 to 4,000 meters apart, according to one of the sources, as well as satellite imagery. Their transponders are off and their lights are dimmed, according to 4 sources. A series of waypoints allow the U.S. military to monitor the progress of the designated tankers, but the Americans are obviously watching you all the time, one of the sources said. When they pass through the strait, just beyond a zone that Iran delineated as under its control, the tankers pull alongside the recipient ships, which are very large crude carriers, or VLCCs, to begin the oil transfers. These take between 24 and 40 hours to complete. The empty tankers then shuttle back through the strait, and the newly loaded VLCCs sail onward. What makes this ship-to-ship operation possible is that there are few shippers willing to sail their vessels through the strait to deliver the oil to the waiting tankers, despite the Iranian blockade. But the operation is risky. You just don't know when Iran might decide to start using drones or even gunboats in order to prevent even those ships from transiting the strait, said Noam Radin, a senior fellow at Washington Institute, who specializes in maritime risk and who reviewed Reuters' findings. The ship-to-ship technique has been used by Iran for years to bypass sanctions because it masks the source of oil. The Iranians usually operate one pair of ships at a time, both to avoid detection and because its pre-war exports were relatively small. The U.S.-led operation, which involves mass transfers, gives Gulf producers better protection from Iranian retaliatory attacks so they can move crude, condensate, and petroleum products to international buyers. Reuters reviewed more than a dozen satellite images taken between May 2nd and June 11th, showing ship-to-ship transfers involving state-owned Gulf tanker fleets and internationally operated vessels that receive the oil. LSEG and Kepler shipping data reviewed by Reuters showed repeated rendezvous between tankers operating in the area during the same period. Based on the imagery, Reuters calculated that at least 90 million barrels of crude oil and petroleum products could have moved through the offshore network since early May. The volumes, based on the tankers' carrying capacities, are still small compared to the pre-war average of about 90 million barrels that pass through the strait daily. As the old rules weaken, it's ironic that the United States is now taking a page out of the playbook of China, Russia, North Korea, and even Iran, whose so-called dark fleets pioneered these techniques precisely to evade U.S. and UN sanctions. Michael Froman, president of the Council on Foreign Relations, wrote in a note Friday. He was referring to the practice of sending ships through the strait without transponders, which Trump mentioned in comments June 10th after the downing of the Apache. 6 sources with direct knowledge of the operation said the U.S. supported participating vessels through a combination of aerial surveillance, compliance screening, and monitoring rather than naval support. Reuters found no indication that U.S. military personnel were directly involved in the transfers themselves. Linda?
Thank you, Larry. DOJ is investigating nonprofits and finances tied to Newsom's wife. The U.S. Department of Justice is investigating the finances of first partner Jennifer Seibel Newsom, according to 2 sources familiar with the investigation. The probe focuses on Seibel Newsom's taxes and nonprofits connected to her and Governor Gavin Newsom, according to a federal source and a source within Seibel Newsom's office who were not authorized to speak publicly. The federal source said there were several investigations into the Newsoms that had been ongoing for roughly 1 year and originated out of whistleblower complaints submitted to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Sacramento. One investigation is connected to the prosecution of Dana Williamson, Newsom's former chief of staff, who pleaded guilty to fraud and lying to the FBI last month. Another investigation is related to Seibel Newsom's taxes and could potentially ensnare current staff members, the source said. Spokesperson for the DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office, and FBI also declined to comment. McGregor Scott, a former federal prosecutor representing Williamson, said he had not been contacted as of Monday. Newsom's office said IRS and FBI agents had reached out to dozens of the couple's employees and associates in the last week to ask about Newsom's finances and business dealings, but did not appear to be following any particular line of inquiry. The office said it believed investigators also had obtained both Newsom's bank records. In a video statement posted to social media, Newsom claimed the White House is abusing the grand jury process to target him and his wife after months of antagonizing President Trump and ahead of Newsom's planned run for president in 2028. On Monday afternoon, Newsom sent out a fundraising email soliciting donations to help fight off this political witch hunt. The White House has not identified a specific allegation, Newsom said, but is instead conducting interviews and requesting records in efforts to identify crimes allegedly committed by the governor and his wife, dating back to their first forays into politics and businesses, starting with the late 1990s and early 2000s. This month, federal investigators began contacting donors, former and current employees, board members, and donors connected to nonprofits and organizations connected to Seibel, Newsom, and Newsom, according to the source in Seibel Newsom's office. Seibel Newsom, who has been married to Newsom since 2008, maintains a high profile than other state governor spouses, has been the subject of several recent articles in right-wing news outlets. Newsom's office said neither he nor Seibel Newsom had received subpoenas as of Monday, but were sure they were coming and that the governor looks forward to it. In the video, Newsom called Trump the most corrupt president in American history and said he was being targeted because I am considering running for president in 2028. He cited Trump's other Democratic opponents who have come under scrutiny or prosecution in recent months, like New York Attorney General Letitia James, former FBI Director James Comey, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. There are clearly no boundaries to what Donald Trump will do to get his way or to challenge those who get in his way, Seibel Newsom said in a statement. This is not presidential behavior, and the governor and I will continue to speak truth to power because the American people deserve so much more. The source in Seibel Newsom's office said the current investigation began the same time that federal authorities began investigating Williamson, Newsom's former chief of staff. In 2022, the FBI under the Biden administration began probing Williamson for shutting down a state sexual harassment case into a video game company, Activision Blizzard, whom Williamson previously consulted for being hired by Newsom. Williamson pleaded guilty last month to fraud and lying to the FBI. She faces up to 38 years in prison and $1.35 million in fines. Newsom previously told the Sacramento Bee the FBI had not interviewed him about Williams' investigation, nor had he received any notification that agents had surveilled his communications after the FBI intercepted lobbyist communications during the Williamson probe. Investigation efforts intensified, Newsom's office said, after Todd Blanche became the acting head of the DOJ. After calling for my arrest last year, Donald Trump directed his Department of Justice to investigate me, Newsom said in a statement. Seibel Newsom draws a six-figure salary from Representation Project, a nonprofit she founded to finance her documentary films and promote feminism. The nonprofit paid her more than $161,000 last year for her 40-hour-a-week work as founder and COO, according to tax filings. It separately paid Seibel Newsom's related film production company, Girls Club Entertainment, an identical amount for contracting work. In all, Seibel Newsom earned roughly $3 million in salary and through her company licensing fees since 2015. In its filings, the Presentation Project said that GCE owns the copyright to 4 films written and produced by Seibel Newsom and has licensed it to the Representation Project for distribution. In 2021, the Bee reported the ties between the nonprofit and companies that lobbied the governor. Newsom denied a conflict of interest, but the investigation by the Bee found more than $800,000 in donations to Representation Project from companies including PG&E, AT&T, and Kaiser Permanente. The governor has solicited more than $4.8 million worth of donations since 2020 for another nonprofit, California Partners Project, which advocates for gender equity across the state, and where his wife serves on the board. More than a third of that came from the Federated Indians of Grayton Ranchera, which operates the Grayton Resort and Casino in Sonoma County. The so-called behested payments are legal under California law. The governor is also connected to the nonprofit California State Protocol Foundation, which pays for expenses Newsom incurs in his political activities. The group took in more than $5 million in gifts, grants, and contributions from 2020 through 2024, according to its tax returns. The nonprofit didn't report paying any compensation to the staff or board, which includes 2 former Newsom aides. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring.